Hi there, this is Tony from pianotone.ca, and this is my review on a really cool new product from Korg, the Korg Liano digital piano. So when I first heard about the Korg Liano and checked out the specs and some of the initial reviews online, I have to admit this keyboard looked pretty promising. I saw one for rent in my local music store, so I jumped at the opportunity to rent the Liano and check it out. Okay, so what is the Korg Liano? It's kind of two things. It's a great entry level option for someone who wants a digital piano that's focused on piano players but isn't going to break the bank. And it's a fantastic, super portable option for somebody who has an acoustic or a fully weighted digital piano but wants something that's much easier to move around as a second keyboard. As a matter of fact, the Liano is now my new favorite option for this need. So, what do I mean by those two things? By focused on piano players, I mean a keyboard that preferably has more than 61 keys, actually, preferably 88 keys, doesn't need a lot of sounds or bells and whistles like rhythms or accompaniment, but should have good piano, electric piano, and organ sounds, and it should have an action that provides a bit more of a pianistic playing experience. So something that is or feels semi-weighted, and also something with true full-size keys as opposed to most non-weighted synth action keyboards that say they have full-size keys, but they're actually a little bit narrower. And by super portable, I mean something that's nice and easy to take to a rehearsal or to a low-key performance like busking or playing in a cafe. So something that is much lighter than fully weighted digital pianos, which usually weigh in at least around 25 pounds. So basically something around 15 pounds or even lighter, and it should also have the option to run on batteries. Okay, so portability. This isn't usually the first thing I talk about in a keyboard review, but with the Korg Liano, it's definitely the first thing I want to talk about. The Korg Liano has 88 keys, but only weighs 13 pounds. This is without a doubt the lightest 88 key keyboard that I know of on the market. And it's not only super light, it's also insanely slim at under 3 inches. So between the weight and the small form factor, when you add in the fact that the Liano can also run on 6 AA batteries, that definitely satisfies the super portable requirements with flying colors. My Yamaha PSR EW425 has fewer keys at 76 and it weighs almost 20 pounds. And my P125 digital piano is about twice as heavy as the Liano at almost 26 pounds. Okay, so key action. When I first heard about the lightweight and how thin the Liano is, my next thought was immediately, what will Korg's LS action feel like? To be honest, when I first tried it, I was expecting an extremely light, really cheap feeling, kind of springy synth action, but I was really surprised and in a good way. I really like this action. And the other thing that I was surprised at, and also in a good way, is that the keys are true full-size keys, 164 millimeter octave width. So yes, the same as a fully weighted digital piano. Okay, so to try and describe this action, non-weighted keyboard actions can be pretty hard to put into words, but here goes. The action is obviously much lighter than a fully weighted digital piano, but it is either semi-weighted or it just feels like it's semi-weighted, and it has a nice, smooth feel to it. And while it is a light action, it is pretty pianistic in how it responds. I'm used to playing fully weighted digital pianos, and I find that the Liano's action is a lot more familiar feeling and easier to adjust to than the super light and really springy action on the Yamaha PSR E-Series keyboards, or the almost semi-weighted but kind of mushy feeling action on the Tone CTS-1, CTS-400, and CTS-500. And these Yamaha and Tone keyboards all have that narrower octave width, which is definitely not my preference. The Yamaha Piaggio NP32 was a keyboard I reviewed very early on in my channel. It's actually been around for quite a long time. And it's also probably the most similar overall product to the Korg Liano. The NP32 has Yamaha's graded soft touch keybed, which, while not being weighted, is actually graded with slightly more resistance on the left than on the right, just like a piano is. And the action on the NP32 is definitely more pianistic feeling than the Yamaha PSR E-Series or the Tone keyboards. But the one knock on the NP32's action, though, is that the keys are once again that narrower octave width. Okay, so after all of that, I can without a doubt say that the Korg Liano's action is my favorite out of all of the above, and by a large margin. While it would be ideal if it was a tiny bit heavier feeling, I find it to be really smooth, it's natural, and it's familiar feeling to play. It's not at all a big adjustment to play the Liano after spending hours on my fully weighted Yamaha DGX 670. And a big part of that is that it has all 88 keys and they are true full size. And while the finish on the keys isn't a visible matte finish like on the Tone CTS-1, they are a little bit less shiny and smooth than the keys on the PSR E-Series keyboards or the Piaggio. And there are 3 levels of touch sensitivity available. After trying them all out, I found the hard selection to be the most natural feeling to me. Sounds. Okay, the Liano only has 8 sounds, but they are bread and butter sounds, and most of them are quite good. The sounds are easily selectable with a labeled knob on the front panel, and the Liano has an impressive 128 notes of polyphony, which is quite a bit at this price point. And it also has reverb and chorus for effects. There are 2 pianos, 2 electric pianos, a harpsichord, pipe organ, jazz organ, and strings. In my opinion, the best voices and the ones that I would use pretty much exclusively if I owned a Liano would be the main piano sound, which is a really well-sampled Italian grand inherited from the Korg Nautilus, the Rhodes electric piano, and the jazz organ. Here's a quick demo of all the voices on the Korg Liano. Okay, so something important to mention with regard to the voices on the Liano is that the Liano includes access to a couple of free MIDI sound bank apps from Korg at about an $80 or so value, and that adds quite a bit more voice options to the Liano. And on that note, I'd like to go over the connectivity features next because the Liano has one really awesome feature that makes Korg's MIDI apps or any other MIDI sound source app far better. So let's move on to connectivity. Okay, for connectivity, the Liano has a 1/8 inch stereo headphone output, which doubles as your line out to connect to external audio equipment. It really is a shame that Korg didn't include left and right line outs, which would really appeal to gigging musicians that are looking for a lightweight board, especially given how awesome the speakers are. But the headphone port does work. There's a generic 1/4 inch sustain pedal port, and there is a basic black switch brick pedal that's included with the Liano. And the final bit of connectivity is the USB to host port for connecting the Liano to a device like an iPad. Now, this is where that awesome connectivity feature comes in. This port has a built-in audio interface. On most keyboards, the port only sends MIDI data, but on the Liano, it also sends audio, and it sends it in both directions. This is something Yamaha has been including on many of their keyboards and digital pianos for years, that for some unknown reason Casio has never done. And it's an amazing feature. It allows you to do a few very cool things. You can send high-quality audio direct to your phone's camera app to record a piano performance video. And you can also send high-quality direct audio to a DAW recording app like GarageBand on an iPad to easily record an audio track, and you can do all of this without needing an external audio interface box like a Focusrite Scarlett, which you will need to do the same thing on a Casio or Casio Tone. And since audio goes in both directions, you can use this as an audio in to stream backing tracks or any other audio from your device into the Liano's headphones or speakers. And this audio interface feature is what makes using MIDI sound bank apps on a device way cooler. On a keyboard without this feature, you can still connect an iPad and use MIDI to trigger the sounds in the app, but you're only going to hear those sounds on the device, not on your keyboard. And with the Liano's built-in audio interface, the audio from your device is automatically sent back to the keyboard, so you do hear it, along with whatever you're playing on the built-in voices, through the headphones and speakers, and without any noticeable latency. So on that note, let's move on to apps so that I can demonstrate all of this. So the Korg Liano includes access to a couple of MIDI sound bank apps from Korg. The Korg module, which I've got loaded up here on my iPad, it's basically a sound bank offering a bunch of additional sounds. And then there's also Korg Gadget 2 LE for DAW music production, and it also offers some additional sounds as well. Now, I'm not going to be doing an in-depth demo of these apps, but I'm just going to quickly show you a couple of things. Now, keep in mind, everything you're about to hear is coming out of the Liano, not out of my iPad. So right now I've got the Natural Grand loaded on the Korg module. I'm just going to go to the categories here just to show you what we've got. We've got some different pianos. We've got electric pianos that we can choose from. We've got organs, clav, some strings as well. So I'm going to load up a string sound here. Now this is where that audio interface being built into the USB port comes into play. So I've got the piano sound, main piano selected on my Liano, and I've got the strings sound selected on the app. So when I play, you're hearing both of them as if I've just layered two sounds on the Liano. And that's the only reason that's working is because of the audio interface built into the USB port. So that sends the audio that's coming from the iPad, from this app, back into the piano. So that's super, super cool. Okay, but what if I only wanted to hear the sound from the app and not the sound from the Liano? Well, I can't just turn the Liano volume down and you're not going to hear anything. But what I can do is turn off what's called local control on the Liano. So you need to look this up in the little key combination chart in the manual. But to do that, I'm going to hold down reverb and metronome, and I'm going to hit the B flat. That's, I guess it's B flat 3, so just underneath middle C. And now I'm only hearing the sound from the tablet. Now also notice, I'm just going to switch back to a piano here for a second. So now you'll just be hearing the piano sound from the Korg module because I've got local control turned off on the Liano. But if you watch my fingers and you watch the keyboard on the screen and also just listen for the sound to listen for any latency, you're going to hear that there isn't really any latency. So because there's no real noticeable latency, that makes this totally usable in a performance even. So one thing I do have to mention that I noticed with these Korg apps is that unlike most of the MIDI soundbank apps that I'm used to using, these Korg apps stop working if the app loses focus. To me, this is a huge issue because if I've got my iPad connected to my keyboard, I'm likely to be running other apps like Songbook Pro in particular to stream in backing tracks and to scroll lyrics and chord charts. So if the Korg app stops working when it's not active, then it's kind of useless to me. So for example, if I close that, here, let's go back in first. You can see that it's working. As soon as I do this, I'm not getting any sound anymore. So if I was to run my Songbook Pro app, it's not going to work. But there are tons of amazing MIDI soundbank apps out there that do not have this issue that you can use instead, so not to worry. I would actually highly recommend checking out the free Numa Player app, which I love this app. We'll do a review on it eventually. This app has some great sounds, and you can actually layer all four of the categories together if you want. So I'm not even going to bother checking what sounds I've got it set up in here, etc. But you can now hear sounds from this app. And when I close this app up, you can hear that it still works, even though it's lost focus. Now, another app to mention that you get a deal with when you buy a Korg Liano is the Scoof Piano Learning app. This is a cool app for learning how to play piano, kind of similar to Simply Piano and Floki, that type of thing. You get a free 3-month subscription with your Liano purchase, so it's definitely worth checking that out. Okay, speakers. The speakers on the Korg Liano are really surprising and in a good way. For a keyboard that weighs so little and is so thin, the two 8-watt bass reflex speakers for a total of 16 watts sound loud and full and do not distort even at a high volume. The bass reflex means that they've got some extra vents or ports that improve the bass significantly, and there's no doubt that this is true. Here's a quick video demonstrating the speakers just as picked up by my iPhone's built-in mic. Okay, so what's missing? Well, no keyboard's perfect, and there are a few things that I really wish that the Liano had. Left and right lineouts for connecting to external audio equipment like amps, PA systems, or audio interfaces. This is especially a shame because the speakers are so good. If the Liano had left and right lineouts, it would become a real good budget 88-key gigging option, since you'd be able to use those speakers as monitors to hear yourself while you play. Since you have to use the headphone port if you're gigging, you won't be able to hear your speakers at the same time. With 128 notes of polyphony, it would be cool to see Korg add layers and splits to the Liano. And on that note, I wish Korg could add just a couple more voices. I'd actually love to see them remove the second piano and the harpsichord voices and replace them with a Wurlitzer electric piano and a bass guitar, especially if they were to add layers and splits. Okay, so what's the verdict on the Korg Liano? If you're looking for an 88-key, super portable piano option that has great piano, electric piano, and jazz organ sounds, and provides a reasonably pianistic playing experience with a smooth, semi-weighted feeling action and true full-size keys, and you don't want to spend a ton of money, the Liano is a fantastic option, especially with the surprisingly good speakers and all of the extra functionality that the built-in audio interface provides. I can definitely highly recommend the Korg Liano. It is, without a doubt, my new recommended entry-level portable piano option. I would definitely opt for the Liano over the Alesis Recital, the Yamaha PSR E373, the Roland Go Piano, and even the Casio Tone CTS-1. So I've left some Amazon affiliate links below if you want to check out current prices on the Korg Liano in your area, as well as some links to some online piano training that I recommend. So if you enjoyed this review, please feel free to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. It does really help me out. So thanks again for stopping by, and happy piano shopping and piano playing, and have an awesome day.